Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
Alright folks, here we are on Saturday, January 11th. We're going to take a look at Archer today. So Archer has pulled back a bit from last once we looked at it, and so I thought I'd come in and sort of see where things are situated. Now, the levels that we have on the chart here have actually been holding up really well. We zoom in here on the intraday. You can see the last several days. I mean, many days, right? But you go back here to January 2nd, and you see it moving off of this 943 level and holding that, and then having a huge, I mean, this is a 10-minute candle that is plus 10.73% to open the day on January 3rd. Flew right through that 1040. We'll get back to that in a moment. And then sort of wrestled with confirming support at 1116. Started bumping its head just 2 pennies above this 1182 level that we have on the chart, and then rejecting off that a bit, and then having a fly all the way up to 1248. Again, like huge candles opening up the day, plus 4%, plus almost 2% just on a 10-minute candle, coming within 20 cents of that 1268 level that we have on the chart, falling back through the 1182 pretty quickly, and then settling on that 1116, first as support, then as resistance, and then coming into the 8th, we get a rejection, a re-rejection off of that 1116 twice on the 10-minute candles, wicking off of it both times, coming back through the 1040 level, confirming resistance, and working back up to support later in the day. Now, on the 10th, Friday, gap down through the 1040, and then we get a bunch of wrestling with the 943, right? A bit below, a bit above, a bit below, back to it, and then rejecting off and coming back to the 899 level that we have on the chart, falling just 5 cents shy of that to close out the day. So, to me, the levels have been holding up tremendously well. This is why we plot them on the daily, and then you can use them on whatever time frame you want. I just showed the 10-minute there because if I do trade intraday, that's typically I work off the 10 and the 3. But yeah, this has been holding up really well. Now, it's getting mighty low on the levels that we have here, right? We have 899, which is at or maybe slightly above where it is at the moment. And then we have 838. And then we don't have any other levels on the chart. Now we can fill them in for sure. But just keep that in mind. It's sort of like as this swing goes, it seems to be getting quite top heavy. And so we'll take another look at that in a moment, see what we think of it. Now, if it does get legs back, it's basically the levels that we just saw working downward through. But, you know, if it's able to readdress those levels, 943, 1040, 1116, 1182, 1268, and where we've not seen it yet, up to 1337, at least in this sort of swing. Now, EMAs wise, this is probably more important to my mind. Now, it had been riding the 8/ very close to the 21. You see this candle here for a very long time. Right, since for about 2 months. And so, you know, big, bold move here. But now what do we see? We see the 8 curling down toward the 21, which isn't the end of the world, right? It was happening here. It was happening here and here. But what we also see is the price interacting with the 21 EMA, which it had not done since it kicked off this run. And so that, you know, has me a bit concerned for Archer bulls. Yeah, now it's interacting with the 21. Maybe it gets a big bounce off of that, or as it approaches this 34. But more often than not, what I would say is it's just looking very top heavy. It's looking very top heavy, and it's interacting with lower EMA, like longer term EMA levels, which is what you don't want to see as a bull if you are playing sort of like a swing or something like that. If you're in it for the longer term, then first of all, you're probably watching the wrong video, because this video is just based on the chart. And so if you're a longer term investor, you're probably looking at things like, you know, PE ratio and fundamentals and earnings reports and analyst ratings and all that jazz, insider trading. Here we're just looking at the chart. And so by chart standards, I would say it is concerning for Archer bulls, to me, to see it interacting with the 21 and being mighty close interacting with the 34. The 34 at the moment situated at 866, right? So it's very close. It's closer to the 34 than it is the 8, right? And that's problematic. So the 8's all the way up at 1025 at the moment, and the 34 is within just, you know, a few dozen pennies there at 866. So we'll see what that means, but you know, this would give me sort of some pause if I were an Archer bull looking at that EMA setup. So that to me is sort of the go-to, the more important view of things versus even these levels, which, like I said, have held up really well, and that's true. But I do think that those EMAs are probably dominantly important. Now, looking back here, lengthy trigger and fire and the TTM squeeze indicator set this whole motion off. Nothing re-triggering yet. We had this brief sort of blip, but I typically call those sort of like blip candles, right? They just sort of come in and they're a blip on the radar screen, but they don't really like impact things. They don't really mean a ton. So we do see the bullish momentum on the histogram here dying down as well. It's obvious per the chart. ATR levels, we see the put trigger at 927. It's below that at the moment. There's a -1 ATR of 773, right? So while here we have just levels down to 838, maybe there's something to consider there. If it does turn to the downside, or continues turning to the downside, 773, right? That's this -1 ATR right here. But the channel is so broad at the moment because this crazy volatility, it's well within the channel. It's just sort of like mid-range of the channel at the moment. But to me, those ATR levels maybe give another option, another opportunity to pick up some support and resistance levels. This mid put level here is at like 846 or so. So we have 838, so it's pretty in line with that, but that -1 ATR of 773, you know, might come into play and be a factor as well. So, you know, maybe something to consider there. But like I said, to me, you know, pull up your own chart and whatever. But if I'm looking at it, I'm happy with these levels in terms of like they've held up really well. But I'm pretty concerned when looking at that EMA setup that I talked about. So, you know, figure it out and do what you think is best. But to me, that looks a little bit concerning, a little bit top heavy. And I do think these ATR levels might be a nice factor, right? It did it here, right? When it rejected here and came through the -1 ATR, and then it was so volatile that it hit the -1 ATR and the +1 ATR in the same month. And that's the full duration of the ATR levels. These are monthly levels, and so for the month of December, it hit the -1 and the +1. Crazy. And just to like sort of put a fine point on that, it came in at the base ATR, right? It came in mid-range and it hit both. In fact, on day one, or I guess day two, but maybe trading day one, yeah, trading day one, which is December 2nd, it hit both the base ATR, the put trigger, the mid-range put level, and the -1 put level, and more. So, you know, and then by the time December 27th rolled around, it had, or I guess technically by the time December 26th rolled around, it had all, you know, clawed all the way back to a +1 ATR. I mean, just insane stuff, right? And now for January, it has gone through the +1 ATR. So my question is it sort of doing it in reverse motion for January? Maybe. Like, not because it would do that for any weird mystical reason, Jesus. But it is interesting that it hit the -1, clawed back to all the way to the +1. Here it hits the +1, and now it's looking like it might want to claw back, claw down, all the way to the -1. We'll see. It would be quite an interesting sort of run of events there if that were the case. But all right, folks, I hope you are enjoying your weekend. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.